So, as Jen said, my name is Eric Dieterle. I'm a field biologist and education coordinator with Atlantic Marine Conservation Society. We're also known as AMCs, so you'll hear me reference us as that, so same thing. So we're gonna dive right into the presentation. And like Jen said, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask them through the chat. I like to make this more of a discussion rather than me just talking at you. So feel free to ask questions as we go along, and there will also be time at the end. So let's see if this will agree with me. There we go. So before I get into the presentation too much, I just want to take a quick second to recognize our partners and sponsors. Without them, we really can't do what we do. So they're very, very important to us. So some of you might be familiar with our organization, some of you might not be. So I want to quickly go through who we are as a society. We are a group of dedicated individuals for the promotion of marine conservation through action. So we don't want to just do something about it. We don't want to just talk about it, sorry. We want to actually do something about it. So there are only 6 full-time staff members in our organization. So as you can imagine, we can't do all of what we do with just 6 of us. So there are groups of people that we do rely on heavily, and in no particular order. First group I'm going to talk about are our volunteers. Our volunteers can help out with a variety of things, helping out around the office to helping with beach cleanups, but also helping with necropsies. So as an organization, one of our primary responsibilities is to respond to deceased sea turtles and marine mammals in all of New York. So volunteers can help us out with that, especially even if they don't have any previous training, we can train them up to help out with this process. Necropsy is an animal autopsy, if I forgot to mention that. Next, we have students. I like to consider a student anyone that's willing to learn, so hopefully that is everyone. In this photo here, we have one of our previous interns. She is doing an examination on a chemist Ridley sea turtle. So we do take college interns if anyone knows of anyone or is looking into that. Then the next group are different levels of government. These animals that we work with are federally protected. So we have very strong relationships with different levels of government, from municipalities, other local governments, state and federal as well. And then the last group of individuals are the general public. We rely heavily on the general public to be able to call in any of the animals that they might come across. As you can imagine, as I was talking about, there's only 6 full-time staff members. Our boss has said that he's been in this field for over 25 years, and he's never called in an animal himself. So we rely heavily on the general public to do so. And towards the end of the presentation, we will have the New York State Sea Turtle Marine Mammal Stranding Hotline number, which if you take away one thing from this presentation, please let that be it. If you don't already have it in your phones, it'd be great to put it there, just in case if you come across one of these animals. You never know if you will. I've talked to people that have lived on Long Island for decades and have never come across any of these animals on shore. Some people haven't even known that some of these animals are around here. So we're doing what we can, and we hope that you can do the same with calling in any of these animals. So now I'm going to get into a little bit about the strandings that we've responded to since our inception year. We started responding to animals in 2017. So this graphic is showing from 2017 to 2019. So it's not exactly accurate or up to date, sorry. But there are about 660 animals that we've responded to in that time frame. And you can add another 140 or so for this year alone. So 800 animals since we've started responding to animals. And as you can see, get my laser pointer here, these animals have come up all around Long Island. And I'll help you out with what these shapes and colors mean for these animals. So blue are cetaceans, or whales, dolphins, and porpoises, like the ones we're gonna learn about tonight. The red squares are seals, and then the green triangles are sea turtles. So as you can see, like I said, they wash up all over Long Island, so it keeps us very busy with responding to them, but we do have to travel sometimes to get to them. And just to point out a little bit more on this map here, this area just offshore to the south of Long Island, these grid areas are proposed or agreed upon wind energy leases. These straight lines here are the shipping lanes. So you can see that these animals do have some competition right off our shores, but we're trying to do, as a society, we're trying to do our best to be able to compromise for both humans and animals to still live your normal lives as much as possible. Oh, I'm gonna quickly go through those. And then I'm gonna get into what we came here to learn about. So if you hear me use the word cetaceans, I know I used it in the last slide, but just to remind you, it means any whales, dolphins, or porpoises. It's kind of an umbrella term for them. So there are two types of cetaceans. There are toothed whales, and those are your dolphins. There are also beaked whales. So some of the more common ones are bottlenose dolphins, orca whales, which are technically a dolphin. And the largest toothed whale is a sperm whale. Then we have baleen whales. Baleen whales do not have any teeth in their mouth like toothed whales do. They have what's called baleen plates, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. It's used for feeding. But baleen whales are like your humpbacks, North Atlantic right whales, blue whales, fin whales, a bit larger whales than toothed whales. And as this presentation goes along, I will talk about some of the differences between the two types of cetaceans. But just a couple of quick ones here. The baleen whales are typically much larger than toothed whales. They're also more solitary animals, so you won't see too many baleen whales around each other. And if they are, they might just happen to be in the same area. They might not actually be associated or hanging out with each other. Toothed whales, you can find them in pods that or groups of even up to thousands with some dolphin species. They can be what's called the superpod, be very, very large groups, but they're typically more social animals. And like I said, I'll talk about more of the differences but as we go along. So hopefully this map looks familiar to you already, so you can familiarize with yourself. This is just focusing on large whale strandings. So we consider a large whale any baleen whale and sperm whales. So to help you out a little bit on what the legend means, the blue squares are humpback whales. The red circles are minke whales. Green triangles are fin whales, or triangle, sorry, singular. And then the yellow pentagon is a North Atlantic right whale. And then the black star is a sperm whale, and the other two are unknown species. Sometimes when we have unknown species out there, it's usually because we might not have photos of it. The animal might wash up dead and we just don't see it again. Or sometimes it's too decomposed to be able to tell what kind of species it is without genetics testing. So this gives you an idea of the large whale strandings for this time frame. We can add, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, about 10 of them for this year, around there. So we're quite up there with large whale strandings. It used to be the average was just a handful a year, and now it's gotten to, last time my boss told me, it was about once a month, or just under a month. So we could average about 12 or 13 a year, and we're doing that pretty well, unfortunately. So now I'm going to dive more into specific species. I'm going to start off with the North Atlantic right whale. The North Atlantic right whale is a critically endangered species. There's less than 400 of them left in the world. They do live only in the North Atlantic, and they are a baleen whale. And they actually get their name because they were the right whale to hunt back when whaling was a big thing. And that's because they're very, very slow animals. And when a whaler would kill them, their bodies would float to the surface and they can easily retrieve the carcass. Some other whales, their bodies do sink, so you can't retrieve it, unfortunately, for that aspect of it, if they did want to actually use their bodies in a sustainable way. But the right whales were hunted so much that their population has dwindled very, very quickly. And they've been kind of bouncing back and forth over the years. But unfortunately, there's less than 400 of them left. And you can identify them by this pattern on their heads. It's also around their blowholes and near their jaws. Those are callosity patterns, and each one is specific to the individual. So we can actually give them names or identify them specifically with numbers. So some of them are very well known for the ones that are able to survive, which is great. And you can also identify them by their big black bodies, but they don't have a dorsal fin. So that's a big distinction between a lot of the large whale species, is that they just don't have a dorsal fin. And they don't spend too much time in our waters. They'll just use our waters for traveling through. Their main stops are Florida and Georgia, where they'll breed, and then they'll make their way up to Canada with a stop usually around Cape Cod because there's a good feeding area, and then usually they'll head north again up into Canada, and that's their migration path. Next, we have the fin whale. The fin whale is the second largest baleen whale. It can be about 70 feet long. It's second to the blue whale, but we don't have blue whales on this coast, so I'm not going to talk about them. But the fin whale, very, very large. It's actually nicknamed the Greyhound of the Sea because it can reach bursts of speed of around 30 miles an hour. So it's very, very sleek, very slender, very streamlined overall. But it's a very large animal. We don't typically see these ones too close to shore. They're more of an offshore species around our area. But this is another baleen whale. And then I'm going to get into the more well-known species of baleen whales, which is a humpback whale. We have been getting reports of these animals off our coasts normally during the summer, so this summer was no exception. People saw them playing around offshore, and you could see them from the beach clearly without binoculars in certain areas. I know Long Beach, Jones Beach, off of Montauk, those areas we were getting some reports. But humpback whales are well known in particular for their acrobatics. It doesn't happen all the time, so it's still pretty rare to see it happen, but they can breach out of the water, which means they bring their bodies out of the water. They can do what's called flipper slapping, where they slap their huge pectoral flippers, which can be about 15 feet long, on the surface of the water. They can also bring their tails out of the water to be able to fluke or dive deeper. But they're also well known for their song. They have a very beautiful song. I'm hoping this is going to work. If you can hear that. So that's a short clip of a humpback whale's song. That's actually from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And humpback whales' songs have been researched for quite a while now. And there's still very many uses of it. They have a lot of different sounds and pitches and everything like that, but it's a very beautiful song overall. And whales can actually communicate over thousands of miles, or hundreds of miles, sorry, depending on how much noise pollution there is, but they can communicate very, very far distances. So now I'm going to get into toothed whales. And the two particular ones I'm going to talk about are dolphins and porpoises. And we get the question a lot, what's the difference? They can look pretty similar, so I'm going to clarify a few differences between dolphins and porpoises here. So these are harbor porpoises, and they actually get their name because they're typically found around harbors. But they have a shorter snout than a dolphin. I'm going to talk about dolphins the next slide. I do have some bottlenose dolphins. They have a very triangular dorsal fin. Dolphins will have a more of a sickle-shaped dorsal. Harbor porpoises, or porpoises in general, are usually found in smaller groups. You can find them in half a dozen individuals or so, not a very, very large group. They also have a stockier body in general. They also have different teeth shape, but unfortunately I don't have any good photos of that. But that is one of the other differences. And then bottlenose dolphins, anyone knows Flipper? That's a bottlenose dolphin. If anyone's familiar with Winter the dolphin from Dolphin Tale, the one that doesn't have a tail, she is also a bottlenose dolphin. So as you can see, talk about some of the differences. This is a very sickle-shaped dorsal fin. Dorsal fin is the fin on the top, compared to the triangular one from the porpoise. Longer snout here, very slender body. Dolphins typically are more acrobatic as well. They like to play in the wake of boats. You can see them doing flips and things like that. They're just very fun to watch. You can also see these ones just off of our beaches here too. You can also see common short-beaked dolphins as well. So there's a couple of those that you can see. And then those some specific ones that we have seen was actually just on the bayside of Shinnecock, that our boss Rob Giovanni was actually able to take these photos. So as you can see, they were pretty close to shore. So like I said, you can see them pretty close to shore. I'll try to ask some questions here and there. I know Jen's probably asking some questions as we go along too. But has anyone ever seen any of these animals close to shore, whether it's any of the baleen whales or toothed whales of the dolphins or porpoises close to shore? And if so, where were they? You can put those in the chat.
I did put those in the chat,
Okay.
the questions too. So haven't seen anything come in so far, but I will certainly let you know.
Okay. And I know it's getting a little bit colder out, but the whales are still in our area. So it's still a possibility to be able to see them. So we can always get surprised on what we see out in the wild. So I always recommend people, if you're out on the beach, just keep an eye on the water, because you never know what you're going to see.
We actually had a couple people. We had 2 people say they've seen dolphins from Long Beach, which is really cool. We've actually had a bunch of reports from Long Beach of both dolphins and whales this summer.
Okay.
Another one says dolphins last summer by Jones Beach. Sorry, dogs are going crazy. Dolphins and whales off of Ponquag Beach.
Okay. Nice. So it's good that you've been able to see some of this wildlife that we do have around the area, and hopefully you're appreciating that these majestic animals are around. Now I'm going to go into a little bit about what they eat and how they eat, because I always find it fascinating how these animals really sustain themselves. So here are a few images of humpback whales, and these ones are feeding on bunker or menhaden. And I'm going to go into more how a baleen whale feeds in the next couple of slides, but I do want to point out that the same food items that these animals can be going for, fishers can be doing the same. So there is the competition of humans feeding, trying to sustain their livelihood, as well as these animals feeding. So the overlap does happen. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But baleen whales will feed on a variety of foods, but one of their favorites is what's called krill. And this is what krill looks like, and as you can see, based off of the hand, it's very, very small. So it would take a lot to fill up a large whale, let's say a humpback whale or a blue whale. But a lot of other things will be feeding on this krill as well. So here we have an image that the krill are very, very small in this image here, but there's market squid feeding on that krill. So baleen whales are, they'll feed on whatever is in their way that they can get their mouths around. So baleen whales will take in a lot of water and food at one time. And if the krill and the squid happen to be in the same area, they'll go for it. So here I have an image of a blue whale, and just to orient yourself a little bit, this is the bottom of the image. It's turned sideways. So bottom of the deeper water here, surface here. So blue whale is coming up to feed, and here is all the market squid and the krill, and the blue whale is going and opening up its mouth, and it's going to be using its baleen plates. Once it has all the food and water in its mouth, they're mammals like us, so they can't process the salt water very well, so they try to get rid of it as much as possible. So they'll open up their mouths, take in all that food and the water, and then they'll actually use their tongue to push out the water. And you can imagine the baleen plates kind of like a broom that overlaps with all the bristles, and it's used like a strainer. Like when you cook pasta, you got to get rid of the water. They could do the same thing. So they'll actually push the water out of their mouths, and the food will get caught on the baleen and all those bristles, and they'll be able to swallow the food whole that way. So whatever happens to be in their area or that water that they take in, they'll end up eating. And to give you a little bit of a break from me talking, hopefully these videos will work. I'm gonna try to. There we go. Can you hear that? Okay, perfect. And I will explain this video in a bit after we're done, but it's such a great video that I want you to be able to watch it. So that was a video of humpback whales bubble feeding, and it's a behavior that's very specific to humpback whales. So they were blowing bubbles to be able to corral food into a ball. So when fish get scared, they'll go into a ball to be able to protect themselves more, safer in numbers type deal. And then the humpbacks will swim from the bottom in between all those bubbles and open up their mouths and take in as much fish as they can. It's a very effective way of feeding. And that video is just absolutely incredible to be able to get that footage of it. So I'm always amazed. I've seen that video several times, but I'm still amazed by it. It's just an incredible behavior. And even though I did say that bubble feeding is very unique to humpback whales, there was actually one instance of a fin whale actually bubble feeding. And so it was a learned behavior from the humpback whales. And I'm not sure if it continued anymore than the other fin whales or not, but there has been one documented case of it. Which would just be a very effective way for other whales to be able to feed as well. I also mentioned before that baleen whales are typically solitary animals, but one reason that they might come together to work with another whale is to coordinate feeding like that. Another way can be for travel when they're migrating to breeding grounds or anything like that. But other than that, they're not really associated too often with each other. And so that's how baleen whales feed. And it's a bit different than toothed whales. So the next video is gonna be of some dolphins feeding. And they start off the same way by trying to scare the food into a ball, but toothed whales are eating one food item at a time. So one fish at a time. They can't chew with their teeth, so it's more just grasping, and then they'll swallow it whole. But I'll give you that chance to be able to watch that video as well. Let's see if it'll. See if it'll work this time. And if you can pay attention to the sounds that you're hearing, I will explain that in a second as well. So to explain that one a little bit more, I asked you to pay attention to the sounds that you're hearing. And a lot of the sounds are, unfortunately, of the scuba diver moving around. But if you could hear that really high-pitched, what's called chirps, those are the dolphins. They're actually communicating, but they can also use what's called echolocation. So it's like sonar for them, and they can actually tell what's going on in their surroundings by using their echolocation. So they're constantly making a lot of sounds like that. That's a big difference between toothed whales and baleen whales. The toothed whales have that ability. Baleen whales do not. So you can see that video that they were coordinating with each other to get all the fish to school or to get them into that ball. And then they're swimming through every once in a while and trying to eat the fish. So it's a slightly different feeding habit than baleen whales outside of the bubble nut feeding, but you get the idea of how they eat that way. And oh, I didn't want to play it again. Let's see if I can. There we go. So now that we've talked a bit about the background for these animals, I want to talk about the threats that they face. And I kind of hinted to some of them earlier on. So to throw another question out there, what do you think some of the biggest threats that these animals face are in the environment in any aspect?
And again, you guys can type your guesses right into that chat. Boat strikes is one that we have.
Yep.
Shipping, plastics,
Mm-hmm.
pollution.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, those are all great answers.
Those are definitely some big threats, and there is something that they all have in common, and that's that they actually are from humans. So we are actually their biggest threat, and it can happen in a couple different ways, just like a few of you had mentioned. So I'm going to talk about some of those threats in this section of it. And a few of these are going to, the next couple slides are going to be specific cases or situations that these animals have been affected by humans. And we consider that human interaction. So any way that a human has impacted these animals, whether it's caused them to die or just had caused them to have stress or any influence that we might have on them. So this is a case from Virginia. This is a minke whale. So this whale could possibly be up to 25 feet long, weigh 8 to 10 tons, which is 16,000 to 20,000 pounds. But this animal is quite thin. This one did die. And the big reason I'm bringing this one up is to show the impact of such a small item can have on an animal like this. So this animal actually died because of this. This is a DVD case, and it was determined through a necropsy that this plastic case, which is very, very small in proportion to this minke whale, actually cut the stomach of the whale and wasn't able to feed. So, and add insult to injury, when this whale wasn't able to feed, it was in poor health anyway, it actually got hit by a boat as well. So there's a lot of things that happened to this individual, but it all started with this piece of plastic. So marine debris can have a big, big impact on these animals, no matter the size. And another example of that is through a Rizzos dolphin. This is what a Rizzos dolphin looks like. It's not the actual specific one that in the case that I'm going to talk about, but this is Kim Durham, our necropsy program coordinator, and she's responding to that Rizzos dolphin, but I just want to give you the idea of what a Rizzos dolphin looks like. So in another case of a Rizzos dolphin that was responded to, it was actually seen alive at first in the Hudson River, and later died. And during a necropsy, these items were found. So there's this large plastic trash bag, two other black bags, and then a white plastic bag. These were all found in the stomachs. Um, Cetaceans, or whales, dolphins, and porpoises, actually have a 3-chambered stomach, just like cows do. And this bag down here was actually found in the second chamber of the stomach, so it was a little bit farther in, so it means it's been in its system a bit longer. And it was actually deemed that these caused the death of the animal, because when marine animals eat marine debris, they can't digest the food. So it actually stays in their system, and they get a false sense of being full, so they'll actually starve to death, unfortunately. So it can be very sad what happens to these animals. So marine debris, those are a few examples of marine debris, and they are very, very sad cases, but I think that message needs to be portrayed to show the severity of those cases. And ship strikes were also mentioned, so I'm actually going to cover those ones now. And ship strikes can come in different fashions or different ways. So this is one individual that was hit by a boat and has plenty of propeller scars. So it did survive. These are just scars now. So not all ship strikes are fatal for these animals. They can survive them. And this one's near the dorsal fin, so on the top of their body. It can also happen on the tail or the fluke. That's another propeller wound, so they can survive that one as well. Some are not so easily able to survive. Sometimes they can get hit by very, very large boats. So this is a very large cargo ship, and the ship might not know it's actually even hit a whale or has a whale on its hull like this until it gets to port. There have been cases documenting that. So different sized boats can be hitting these whales and have different impacts. But I don't know about you, but normally when I think of a vessel strike, I think of a boat hitting a whale. That's not always the case. The photo on the left here, a humpback whale actually breached and landed on this recreational boater. And this was the damage that was caused. There wasn't any serious damage done to the whale. All the people on the boat were fine. But this was in 2018, and actually happened twice that year. So whales can surprise boaters in that sense, just like boaters can surprise whales when leading to the boats interacting with the whales. So those are some of the big threats. The marine debris is a big threat, and vessel strikes is also another one. And entanglements is one other threat that they face. So I know these photos are not going to be of whales, but fishing gear entanglement is a factor that they can face. And as a part of our responsibilities, we are able to monitor entangled whales. We do not actually help out with the disentanglement itself. There's very, very trained professionals that do that because it's a very, very dangerous process. But we are able to be out there helping, giving them tools if they need anything, kind of help them manage the situation. There was actually an entangled whale off of Long Island about 2 months ago now, a month and a half. And the whale was able to be freed. It has been sighted since it was freed. It looks to be doing well and everything like that. So it's a very happy ending to it. But entanglements can be very dangerous. And I know these are of leatherback sea turtles, but even in this instance, disentangling sea turtles can be dangerous, but we are authorized and trained to be able to do that. But I just want to emphasize, if you do come across any entangled marine mammal, please do not disentangle it yourself, or sea turtle, I should say, as well. Please do not disentangle it yourselves. It can be a very, very dangerous process. So please give us a call. Let us know about it. Please let the professionals handle it. So there have been documented cases of people have unfortunately died trying to disentangle animals. So it can be a severe consequence, just trying to do it yourself. So please do not. So just to kind of do some reminders about marine debris, and you never know when you're going to see it. I mentioned Rob Giovanni is our founder and chief scientist. This is him here. He was actually out on a whale survey in August a couple years ago, and he came across this balloon here. It says Happy Father's Day. So this balloon is floating, is still inflated, doesn't look too faded. So it could possibly have been out there for a while. And they were only out there for 30 minutes, and they picked up 7 pounds of floating marine debris. And if you think about it, a balloon does not weigh 1 pound. So it's more than just 7 items that they found in that 30 minutes, and they weren't even trying to find them. So marine debris can be anywhere. And actually, sorry, before I get to that, the photos of the dolphins that I showed you previously around Shinnecock, those were in that same area. So marine debris and these animals, like the other instances, like the minke whale and the Rizzos dolphins, they can be in the same area, can have a negative impact. So one of the things that we do to try to help that situation is we do beach cleanups. And obviously COVID has thrown that into a whole whirl. So we're still working on doing them with safety guidelines, social distancing, everything like that. But we are getting back into them. We did have a cleanup this past weekend at Halleck State Park Preserve, which is near Riverhead. We were able to pick up 145 pounds of trash. So that was a good day to be able to pick up that much debris. So just a few things that we typically find during our cleanups: shotgun shells, the wadding for it, balloons, balloon strings, plastic bags, bottle caps, things like that. And we try to weigh the debris to kind of give us an idea of how much we're actually picking up. It's very satisfying knowing how much the marine debris you pick up pound-wise. So we do that. We also record the data and the amount of pieces of everything that we're finding. So it's a process for us that we try to do our part as well as responding to the dead animals. So I'm kind of wrapping up the presentation here and just kind of summarizing a few things. I know I've mentioned marine debris throughout this presentation a bit, so if you go to your beach or local beach or any beach in general, please take whatever trash with you out with you. And if you feel comfortable picking up any other debris that you might find, please do so. I did mention that these animals are federally protected. So by law, you have to stay 150 feet away from any marine mammal or sea turtle, and that's anywhere you are within the US. It's for your safety and the safety of the animal. It can cause stress for the animal if you get too close. Some of these animals, like seals, can bite. They might look cute and cuddly, but please do not get close to them. And if you do come across any of these animals, any sea turtle, marine mammal that you think we need to know about, even if they're nice and healthy, please let us know. We do have a sightings link on our website at amcs.org. So please feel free to let us know if you see any of them. If you do come across any sick, injured, or dead marine mammals or sea turtles, this is the hotline number that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Please put this into your phones. It is 631-369-9829. And that's 631-369-9829. So that's for any sick, injured, or dead marine mammals and sea turtles. So that is what I have for you all today. I hope you were able to learn something.
So to kind of wrap up the presentation, I wanted to...
I had audio going on that one. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope you learned something. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
And I think at this point in time as well, you can either type your questions into the chat, or if you'd rather ask a question using your microphone, feel free to unmute yourself. We have plenty of time. So actually, we do have one question in the chat. How can we get involved in beach cleanups?
So that's a good question. So beach cleanups can be either we already have a beach cleanup planned and you can attend it, or if you feel like your local beach should be cleaned up, we can try to help set up a cleanup like that. So we are working on scheduling a few more cleanups that are in the process. So you can pay attention to our Facebook page. We'll have updates there. The next proposed cleanup, I think we're still working on details, but potentially might be October 3rd. And then we're coordinating with other groups that we might try to do cleanups with, like Group for the East End. So we'll update those on our Facebook page or our website. And with COVID and social distancing and everything like that, we're more than likely going to ask people to register for those so that we have an idea of how many people are going to be there and exactly who will be there. A lot of places do have limits on how many people can attend, so we want to abide by those. So definitely paying attention to our website and Facebook page are good ways to keep up with our beach cleanups.
And just to add to that, so if you're interested in going out and doing beach cleanups on your own and you'd like to contribute that data to our research and conservation efforts, we can actually send out, so tomorrow we're going to send out a recording of this presentation to all of you just in case you had any technical difficulties, but we can also attach one of our beach cleanup data sheets. We have several volunteers who actually go out on their own and they'll clean the beaches on their own time, any beach of their choosing, and fill out the data sheet and then send it in to us. So it's a great way to go out, you know, do something that will make a difference and also contribute to science by recording that data and sending it over to us. So we can definitely send that beach cleanup data sheet out to you as well.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Do we have any other questions at this point in time? I'm going to type both my email and Eric's email into the chat. If you guys think of anything after this presentation has ended that you want to ask, if you're interested in learning more about how to get involved with us, you can shoot either one of us an email, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you think of. All right.
So I guess if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to thank everyone again for coming out. Like I said, I hope you learned something and enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you in the future, and please stay safe.
And yeah, thank you again to the
again,
Port Jefferson Free Library.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
And Eric, we did have someone that's interested in setting up a beach cleanup for an Eagle Scout project. So I'm writing down their email and we can get that going.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, everyone.
You can stop recording, by the way.